including the way like they brought Zach and Z in. Zach, you know, with the way Zach and I keep with Sky and Zach. Why do I keep calling him Zach? Hey YouTube, Dawson Ryder here. In today's video, I'm going to be talking about Power Rangers SPD, as it is the 20th anniversary of it airing. I know this is very out of character for me to celebrate an anniversary. As you know, I'm tired of us going anniversary crazy. I think a tweet saying, happy anniversary is all we really need nowadays, and then we can move on. But SPD is definitely a special one, and I wanted to celebrate it and just talk about what I liked about it and what I thought made it special. It's a series that's usually like mostly praised. You know, I think the only thing negative-wise to talk about in regards to the things I see people complaining about, I mean, I'm sure there's all kinds of nitpicks, and I'm sure it has its, you know, haters and people think it's overrated or whatever. But in general, I think the only thing I see a consensus on, even amongst its biggest fans that people didn't like, I like how I'm starting this off on a positive note, which is the Omega Ranger thing, turning him into a ball of light. You know, it's a joke. Some people legit mad. Like, I definitely think it was a missed opportunity. It'd be a different story if he was just a generic, like, future Ranger and they just wanted to keep him a generic character. But because he was that little kid Sam, who the Japanese equivalent of that got married to Jasmine in SPD or in Deca Ranger, and that just weirds me out in like so many ways. But anyway, because it was that kid that had a connection with him, and had this connection with them because he was also part of like the experimented parents storyline where they got, not the experimented parents, but you know what I mean, that's how they got their powers. That could have had so much interesting character potential. So it was definitely a missed opportunity. I think people get way too hung up on it. I've seen people saying it holds it back from being a great season. I think it's one element. I'm not a fan of that criticism nowadays where if it's not perfect or if there's one thing you don't like, suddenly the whole thing is written off. So I do think it was a missed opportunity. It's a small part for me in a lot of ways because everything else about it is so great. And the only thing I kind of liked about that is whenever we get a new team of Rangers and they're just kind of blank slates, they're just kind of like these cool, mysterious heroes, Omega Ranger just kind of always remained that, so that was actually kind of neat. Again, I wish they would have done more with it, but it far from holds the series back. I think honestly there's two main things that I think made the series special overall in regards to its vibe. I think that was the cast. I think it was an excellent cast where every character was memorable and unique. They also had a great group chemistry, great unique dynamic, you know, so many memorable aspects, including the way they brought Jack and Z in. I thought that was really unique. Kind of unrealistic that just random two civilians would become like promoted in some of the highest ranks, like immediately to B squad amongst all the other squads and Jack as Red Ranger. But what they went for with that is really cool, and it's also funny to think about the comments they made about how you couldn't do Lupat because they were thieves, and they did have two thieves become Rangers, and this is one of those seasons that definitely drives home why Disney era is my favorite, because people were imperfect, you know, they didn't talk perfect, it was just great. I really loved that idea, and that set up an interesting dynamic for Jack's development, for Sky's development. Then of course you have characters like Bridge that was so unique, you know, bring in one of my favorite PR running jokes of all time, the Butteriest. I know that was Spencer's, but that's my favorite rendition for some reason. And then you have like a great supporting cast of characters too, with Kat as like the tech mentor, Boom, one of the best side characters in my opinion, bringing in the talented Kelson Henderson. I believe he had a role in Dino Thunder before that, but that was when we started getting him like regular cameos every season. And then also Doggy Kruger, you know, I love that we got our own suit for it. I do like the Doogie suit from Deca Ranger, and I like that version of the character. I've been rewatching the Deca Ranger Returns movies recently, and it reminded me how much I do like that version, but I definitely prefer ours just a little bit. I know it doesn't make as much sense. I mean, to be fair, either dog face couldn't fit into the helmet, but we made his face huge, but the fact that we got this kind of like puppet feel to it that actually looked really realistic in my opinion for the budget they had, not to mention the kind of more alien feel to it was really cool. It was just such a cool version of the character, and it was just such a well-rounded cast of characters. I think it's one of those like top 5 casts in PR that I think is beloved, and just kind of as a lightning in the bottle cast in regards to them individually and as a group. The other thing I think was a huge part of its success was just the vibe and everything. It had a really unique, almost like 50s sci-fi vibe. Of course you have the cop drama stuff, and then like the transitions and the comic panels that gave it a comic booky feel already set the stage with the theme song opening. It was a really unique vibe, and I think that worked really well. Like, and again, the theme song I just mentioned, one of the best theme songs. It also created a great score. I love the Disney era scores. It had a distinct, memorable instrumental score, one of only few outside of mmpr that's memorable. So I think all that came together with the cast and the unique vibe and the music to just give it this special feel where you just liked being in that world with the characters. It also has my second favorite style of adaptation, my first being just ignoring what the Sentai did and going with what you feel. But the second one is taking the kind of loose outline and then coloring it in differently and rearranging a couple things. Because that way you kind of have some of the groundwork laid, but then you have the opportunity to make changes. Like obviously here, they took the core framework of Deca Ranger, if you've seen Deca Ranger, but they changed some things. with the way Jack and Z were introduced, the way we had an actual overarching villain with Emperor Grum and then Omni or the Magnificence or whatever he was. But I think the best change, kind of like how I think the best change from Wild Force that set it apart for me was the introduction of the Master Orc character, I think the best change in this series was A-Squad. That was one of the coolest things they did, just in general, but I think it really set the stage for the core group dynamic and development of the series. Like, the idea that we're already coming in with the team being kind of these underdogs. They're the B team, the B squad. That, I think, just gave such an underdog quality to the overall season for all the characters. There was already a lot of that, but I really like those stories. I'm a sucker for the underdog hero team stories. I know it's a bit different, but, you know, stuff like Guardians, Legends, stuff like that. It wasn't quite like that, you know what I mean. I'm a sucker for kind of the underdog storyline, and I think that that really worked for the overall narrative for them as individuals and a group that just really came to a head when the A-Squad arrived, and they really got to prove themselves. It showed how far they had come, how much they had grown, how much the bond between all of them had grown with not only just them, but Doggy Kruger. Like, one of my favorite moments in that arc was when Kat said to him that Commander Kruger said, "You're the best he's ever had." In bed. I thought that was such a great moment, and the epic fight between them is one of my favorite scenes in the series. It is kind of funny that, like, they get their asses kicked and then they're like, oh wait, we have a power-up, and that's why they win. Not because, like, B-Squad's leveled up our skills. It's like, no, we just have a power-up. We forgot to enter the cheat code. I just thought that was funny, but it was still such a great fight, and also with the A-Squad giving the opportunity to, like, mess around with the team because you don't have to worry about, like, marketing or optics or whatever for casting them. So you could do an alien, like a literal alien ranger that looks like a walrus or whatever, and you can have our first female Red Ranger. It would have been cool to get a little more insight into, like, why they turned, because they're supposedly the best of the best, and from what I remember, the motivation was, like, he offered him money or something, but that really wasn't important. But it was still just a really cool culmination, I think, of the overall story. Like, in a lot of ways, I feel the main story of the core 5 characters came to a head with the conflict with the A-Squad more so than the final conflict with Grum and Omni. But still, that was such a cool addition. Even though they had really weird, you know, hybrid suits of Power Rangers in space and the Kingdom armor from Walking Dead, it was still really cool to see, really creative. I also love the team-ups we had in here. You know, I said this when I did a ranking of all the team-ups that I feel like when they got to the writer's room and were like deciding how are we going to do this, because we can either have them go to the past or, you know, the Rangers visit the future, and they're like, why not both? And I honestly like both of them. Of course, you get the iconic no one gets inside moment from the wormhole one. I always forget, I get them mixed up, but the one where they went to the past. But personally, I prefer the one where they go to the future, the core Dino Thunder trio, just because I always like the dynamic between the two casts, especially again after the Neo Saban era where everyone was so squeaky clean. Seeing them actually have a bit of a rivalry, a jealousy, and just this kind of animosity and banter was a lot of fun. And just, I love that about the Disney era. That's why it's my favorite era, because the characters felt the most real and flawed, and it was more inspiring to see these characters overcome their flaws and be heroes rather than just be Pleasantville mannequins. And I think that was utilized so well in this series with, like, stories about how the characters built themselves up, like Jack and Z, and then just conflict between the cast, Sky and Jack, and then, you know, the Dino Thunder Rangers and SPD. It was just such a special show. There's a reason why it's a fan favorite. It's unfortunate that, you know, it's not popular enough probably to get like a revival movie, Netflix special, Hulu, wherever it would go, Paramount, because the seasons that are popular in the fandom above the rest, like SPD and Time Force, are kind of like hometown famous. Like, yeah, they're famous in our fandom, but your average person's probably not going to know what the hell SPD is. But man, if we had a franchise where other seasons besides mmpr could get stuff like that, we have perfect material for it, because there's been 3 Returns movies for Deca Ranger to mine footage for to save money, especially with that cool new 20 years after Deca Red power-up. At the very least, I'd love for us to get a comic. I guess it seems, I don't know the numbers, that the graphic novels we did for Time Force and Psycho Rangers didn't do that well, because we haven't gotten one of those in a minute. SPD is popular enough in the fandom that it would be nice if they could do just one-off graphic novel. Like, I think Jason Bishop, I've heard it both ways, talked about there was plans for it, kind of spinning off from some of the stuff they introduced in Soul of the Dragon, and we saw a couple pictures of the designs and stuff, you know, incorporating the Fire Squad thing, which apparently had Sophie's AI in there, which is really cool, and, you know, Lena So from Force. I could even incorporate the 20 years after design if we wanted to. Like, I know we probably will never get a Returns movie, but I at least would love to see a graphic novel comic at some point. At the bare minimum, can we bring back annuals? Why don't we do annuals anymore? We only did 2 of them. That would be the bare minimum, but a small little SPD story in an annual would be so cool to see. But let me know what your guys' favorite moments and memories and characters are from SPD in the comments as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Notifications for more videos like this and more. Dawson Ryder, signing out.